Hey there, guys. Welcome back to 10 Weather Chats. Meteorologist Julia Kwedi. I'm joined by two special guests with me today to talk about a little bit of how heart health and hot weather can intersect in terms of prevention and things we just need to know, especially going into the summer season. So we have Shannon Smith here. She is a marketing communications director with the Heart Association rather. And we have Dr. Brian Weissman here, who is a neurologist at UT Medical. How are you guys doing?
Great. Love to be in here. This is Dr. Weissman's first podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for having us. This is great.
Yes. How do you like it? Do you like our setup?
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool.
It's fancy.
So many cameras in here.
Yeah, so we catch every angle. So hopefully we all have multiple good sides that we can show off here.
Yeah. Okay, good to know.
I was told no cameras.
Oh,
Shannon told me no cameras.
He was just on live TV. He's fine.
Okay. Well, so you're good then. You already had your experience then already. Okay. Well, thank you guys again for joining me today. I'm really excited to get into this topic, and especially because we've been having some really hot temperatures as of late since this past weekend.
Have you been outside today?
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I step out, you just feel that moisture. You feel that humidity. Mm-hmm. It feels like summertime already right now. So I guess my first question will be kind of more tied towards you guys' roles and your professions and how it relates to the conversation we're about to have. So for you, Shannon, as the marketing communications director, what's your role mean within the American Heart Association?
So I am a storyteller. Mm-hmm. Some of your listeners may remember me as a former reporter here at WBIR. Mm-hmm. So storytelling has always been the fun part of the job I liked. And with the Heart Association, which is also the American Stroke Association, my job is to get information and stories out. It's to share survivor stories, to share people who did lose their lives to heart disease and stroke, and to get information out there, because everybody has a heart, everybody has a brain. These are two things you want to take care of. And so my job in communications is to make sure that everybody knows that and that they're prioritizing their own health and well-being to live a longer, healthier life.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And same question to you, Dr. Weissman, more so geared to, I guess, for you, how does neurology kind of connect with heart health? I think that might be a common misconception for even I would say myself. I didn't realize how much your brain can connect with your heart health.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess my first response would be I usually do what Shannon tells me to do because she's pretty good at communicating what I need to do and when I need to do it. But no, I love our relationship with American Heart Association. I think we share a very similar vision about people's health in general. At UT Medical, we have a partnership together to end stroke, and we're on that journey together. And so it definitely makes a difference. My role at UT Medical, I'm what's called a neurohospitalist, which means I take care of patients that are in the emergency department or admitted to the hospital. A large portion of those patients have suffered a stroke or are suffering a stroke. And so one of my jobs is to try to help get that patient the treatment they need in a timely fashion, and then help them through the process of recovery after their stroke, and get them to the right place after they, hopefully home, after they're discharged. My other hat is I'm the medical director of our Comprehensive Stroke Center. The Comprehensive Stroke Center is the most elite level of stroke centers in the nation. And so I develop protocols and programs to help improve our care and look at the quality of our care and try to look for opportunities for improvement. And another role is similar to Shannon's, trying to get the word out there about the signs and symptoms of stroke and what to do if you feel like you or your loved one may be having a stroke. And then all the tools about trying to prevent a stroke in the first place, because I'd rather not see you in the emergency room, honestly.
Yes, absolutely.
And with that tie to heart health, a lot of the things you try to work on to prevent a stroke are the same things you do to try to prevent a heart attack. So they're very much tied to the same lifestyle changes will impact your heart and your brain.
Okay, and we're going to get into that. I actually have a question written down that I want to get to on that note in just a few more minutes. But first, kind of tying into what our forecast has been as of late. Like I said, it's been super hot out here. Temperatures in those upper 80s to low 90s. And we are about to have a tiny bit of a break here looking at the 7-day forecast. Temperatures are going to fall back down to those lower 80s. We'll have consistent rain chances in the forecast. So we'll have a bit of a break of these summer conditions, but summer's around the corner, so we're going to be right back to it very shortly. So with that in mind, what is it about the summer season that makes, I guess, maybe a bit more dangerous for folks being out and about, having outdoor activities or whatnot in terms of their heart health in the midst of the summer months?
I think I kind of want to start with hydration if that works for you. So when you're so hot out, you're sweating, the moisture is leaving your body. Hydration, the whole point of hydration, drinking water, is to put that water back. And so if you're not drinking enough water, your heart is not getting what it needs to pump what it needs to the brain, and then everything's not working anymore. And so some things you want to do is not go outside in the heat of the day. 3 p.m., what's usually when we see like the sun peak 3-4 around here, like maybe stay in the shade. Obviously, sometimes you can't, depending on your job or your situations in life, but if you can, drink more water, eat things like watermelon, apples that have naturally more water in them. Because your heart is going to have to work harder when it's hot outside. And the harder it has to work, the more detrimental that can be depending on some of your other physical, factors that you have. If you're more overweight, if you're more sedentary, your heart's already working a little bit harder. So if you're making it go even more, that's when you start to get into the problem of, am I going to have heat exhaustion, heat stroke? Is this going to be something I could just sleep off, or do I need to go to the emergency room?
Absolutely. And what do you say to that too, Dr. Weiss?
Yeah, I mean, I educate patients avoiding the heat of the day. So if you're going to work outside, do it early in the morning or later in the evening when it's cooler. Drink plenty of fluids, especially water. But you also lose electrolytes when you sweat, and so replacing those electrolytes is important. So some of the sports energy drinks out there that are sugar-free have electrolytes in them that you can replace as well. That's very important. Avoiding caffeine and alcohol, because those will actually increase your risk of dehydration ultimately. And so trying to avoid those when you're out in the heat is important. The other thing I think is important that people probably don't understand is when you become dehydrated, your blood volume drops. And when the blood volume drops, the blood tends to be a little bit more sticky, so it clots a little bit easier. And so that therefore increases someone's risk, especially if they already have risk factors, as Shannon mentioned. Depending on what kind of underlying risk factors you have, adding those two things together may be potentially dangerous. And so cooling down, taking plenty of breaks if you're out in the sun, rehydrating, critically important.
Absolutely. So what are some other lifestyle choices that we may be doing that may not be the healthiest, that's kind of part of our normal routine, that could maybe even heighten our risk, especially within the summer months, to put our heart at risk for maybe any heart illnesses or issues there?
I think the one that we would both agree to tell everybody is go to your doctor regularly and know what your blood pressure is. Knowing your blood pressure is going to make such a big difference for when it comes to that care. About a third of Knox County adults have high blood pressure. And there's probably more that don't know it. It's a common thing. Sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes you do need to go on medication for it. Other times you just need to move more. You should consider eating a little bit healthier. It's kind of things that seem simple when you say it, but then when you try to do it, you're like, I have to sleep better. I need to stress less. I need to know my cholesterol, my blood pressure. Like, that's a lot of things to keep up with. But if you just take those little tiny changes, small changes make big habits kind of thing. Just try to drink 1 extra glass of water a day. Take an extra 100 steps in the morning. So it is little things like that will make a difference to your overall health.
Yeah, agree. I agree completely with blood pressure. And as you were talking, I was thinking, I was actually diagnosed with hypertension.
Which is high blood pressure.
Which is high blood pressure, thank you. At the Heart Walk, of all places. There was a booth that was checking blood pressure, and it had never been elevated before. And I didn't believe it when it was 140 over 90. I was like, no, that can't be. I stay around 170 pounds. I eat well. I exercise regularly. Why do I have high blood pressure?
Right.
And so, at the Heart Walk, I was diagnosed. And since then, I think the other important point is if you do have risk factors, whether it be high blood pressure or high cholesterol, your physician's probably going to put you on a medication regimen. Very, very important to be compliant with your medication regimen that your provider has started. I unfortunately, I see patients in the hospital that have not been taking their medication, and therefore they develop a problem that potentially could have been prevented if they were still on their medication. So know your risk factors, and also take the medications that are prescribed. If you're having problems tolerating the medications, then have that discussion with your provider because there's a lot of alternatives probably that can be offered.
Okay. And not to get overly personal into your diagnosis specifically, but for folks who are, honestly, I could even throw myself in there, who assume that like, okay, I weigh a certain weight, I am a former athlete, I stay active, I know I eat healthy, I cook most of my meals at home, there's no way I could probably be at risk for something like hypertension. What are some, I guess, factors that can make those thought processes or ideas inaccurate where like, no, that is a possibility, even though you do live a certain lifestyle, you could still have hypertension? What are some factors that could cause that?
Well, I think as Shannon mentioned, keeping your family history in mind, because there are certainly genetic predisposition to certain health problems, high blood pressure being one of those. And so I think keeping that in mind, if your mom or dad or brother or sister had a certain condition, it may be something that you want to pay attention to. The other thing, the screening piece of this, I think, is important as well. There's a lot of blood pressure cuffs out there that, other than just your primary care doctor or provider. And so I'd encourage people to, periodically test their blood pressure. And, you can have, a lot of places have those sit-down machines that you just put your arm in, test your blood pressure. It gives you a rough idea of what it is. And there's health screenings all the time. I know that at UT Medical, they have HeartWise, which is an outreach screening opportunity for people that test a lot of different things. But blood pressure is a big key because oftentimes people don't have symptoms. I didn't have symptoms.
It's not like a fast pulse or anything that would give it away.
Right.
Yeah. It's called the silent killer for that reason.
Wow.
I like that.
Yeah. Have you heard that?
Yes, I have.
I figured.
About 5 seconds ago. I'm joking.
But no, I think that's very important to keep in mind. Like I said, even throwing myself out there in the sense that I should get that checked because I do believe it actually does run in my family, hypertension. I do believe that's something that my dad struggled with. So it's good to know that just because it's like in, I guess, genetics in terms of where it comes from in your family, something to just keep top of mind. So no, for me personally, that's something I'm going to keep watch of. Now, taking a bit of a shift of a gear here into more about the forecast and how we're going into the summer months very soon here. So we're going to be dealing with very hot temperatures that are going to be more of a daily factor for us going forward. And one of the two most common issues are going to be things like heat stroke, heat exhaustion. So where can we go in terms of prevention when it comes to those type of heat illnesses that folks need to keep top of mind of like, okay, obviously, like you said, drinking water, but are there other tips and tricks that folks can take into their daily lives to prevent those heat illnesses?
I also think it's knowing what those look like. Heat exhaustion and heat stroke are different. One of them is a lot more serious than the other. Not that they're not both going to, knock you out. But I was looking, and correct me, Dr. Wiseman, if I'm wrong, but comparing the symptoms side by side, they're pretty similar. The difference with heat exhaustion is you're kind of getting cold and clammy, and your pulse is a little weaker. Heat stroke, you are hot, you are red, and your pulse is so strong that you're like, I'm going to pass out. That's when you need to go to the hospital. Heat stroke is not a stroke. It is not the same thing. It is not, a blood vessel. It's just your body overheating. But if it overheats to that point of needing to go see Dr. Wiseman, he's not going to be happy to see you. He already said he doesn't want to see us in the hospital. So it all goes back to that hydration. And we had a statistic in the American Heart Association has a peer-reviewed journal called Circulation, and they had put out a stat saying that they expect heat-related cardiovascular incidents to increase over the next couple decades. And that's, for a variety of reasons. We're seeing hotter temperatures stick around longer. We're seeing people, choose some different lifestyle choices that are not going to help them. We're seeing just how you choose to eat and sleep and spend your time. And so we're trying to combat that, overall. We don't want more people to end up in the ER because it's so hot outside. So that hydration is important. I don't know that we can hit that enough. Like, just drink enough water. Drink enough water. Move so that, when you're walking outside, it's not as much of a shock because you've been walking around more. Sleep is so important, which is kind of wild. You're like, what does the weather have to do with sleep? Like, it resets your entire body to make you stronger when you are out in the sun. And I feel like I'm just rambling a bunch of statistics now, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Wiseman.
Well, the thing I would like to emphasize is staying cool. And so there's two sort of segments of heat exhaustion or heat stroke: passive and active. So obviously, the active is the athlete. In the middle of the summer, they have all their gear on. They overheat and they have heat exhaustion, which can present with feeling lightheaded or feeling faint, getting fatigued or weak, maybe muscle cramps, kind of having that cold, clammy feel. And so those are your symptoms and signs that, hey, I need to stop what I'm doing and cool down because I'm starting to overheat. The other is passive heat exhaustion or heat stroke, where people aren't active, but they're at risk for a heat-related illness. So elderly, young people, infants, toddlers, children, pregnant women also have a higher risk. And so these are the risk groups that need to be very careful when the temperature gets really, really hot in the summer. Find a cool place to be so that you don't have those that risk of having a heat-related illness. If it does get extreme into heat stroke, obviously confusion, slurred speech, balance difficulties. So a lot of the symptoms that can sometimes mimic a circulation problem to the brain, but this is not a circulation problem to the brain. It's an overheating where the body temperature gets above 104 degrees Fahrenheit, which is super hot. And then it can lead to coma, seizures, and even death, because it really affects all the organs in the body because it's a massive inflammatory response. In those situations, that's a medical emergency, heat stroke is, and immediate cooling of the body temperatures is most critical. And so, I think the message is stay cool, stay hydrated, take frequent breaks if you're out exercising, so that you can avoid those heat-related illnesses.
A lot of these tips I heard growing up because I was a former athlete. I played tennis, and I remember my coaches, and of course my mom, always. Sometimes looking back, I'm like, gosh, I should have been like, just listen just a tiny bit more. But I was like, okay, Mom, I'll drink water. I'll drink the Gatorade. I'll drink all the electrolyte water. My mom was like, I'm not trying to nag you or be on your back about it, but like, you are going out playing these tennis matches 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It is 90-something degrees outside. You're playing on concrete, which soaks up that heat even more. So literally on that tennis court, it can be around 5 to 10 degrees hotter than it actually is. So definitely, I think for the athletes, really want to take these points and really take them into account, especially for any outdoor activities, especially I think when you're an athlete, for sure.
Right. And I feel like that kind of advocate for yourself too. If you have a coach that's like, no, get over it. Like, no, maybe like sit. You'll be fine.
That's a very good point because I remember growing up, I was lucky. I didn't have that experience, but I heard stories where coaches would overexert and overpush on their athletes and wouldn't take of course, also in the power dynamic of like them being kids, they're just thinking they're just listening to their authority figure, and unfortunately the coach isn't listening to their athletes saying, "I'm tired, I'm feeling faint." And they're like, you just need to push through it. And
right. We don't want that.
No, we don't want that.
Not in the heat like this, especially.
And I think that's a great point. But it's not just the coaches; it's also the athletes that push themselves.
That's a good point.
And hey, I can push through this, and it'll get better. And listen to your body, take the break, hydrate, get cool, and then resume. And I know I run constantly. It seems 5 days a week or so. I'm trying to get out and run, and I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit lightheaded right now. I probably need to drink some water and cool down and stop and reset. So very important, instead of trying to push through, listen to your body, take that break.
Yes. And I know I can kind of throw myself under the bus on this point too. I know there were plenty of moments where I'm thinking, just stay strong, power through. You're an athlete, you're competing, just push through the pain. It's like, no, this is your health, and your health is everything. It's not more important than this tennis match or whatever.
Which is hard to tell yourself when you're in the thick
moment.
of it.
Yes, for sure. But I think that mindset of advocating for yourself in those moments, and just as a self-reminder of like, no, my health comes first and foremost over everything. So I guess my last question to you both, are there any notes that I may have missed that you definitely want folks to maybe like really take home after our conversation in terms of taking care of themselves in the upcoming summer months?
Anything you would like to to push on?
I think it's important to, and going back to the stroke aspect of things, prevention is important. We talked a little bit about that. If you have signs and symptoms of stroke, which we educate Be Fast, and there's a lot of material on Be Fast and how to recognize symptoms, calling 911, critically important. They're one of the links in the chain that is super critical for rescue of brain, and getting patients to the hospital in a timely fashion, calling us ahead of time. At UT Medical, our team is there ready. If you're coming through EMS, they call us. We're there ready to figure things out and get patients treated very quickly. That helps improve the chances of a good outcome. The quicker we get treatment if you're having a stroke, and so I would just like to emphasize that.
Yeah, and he told us Be Fast, and it was a teaser. What does it stand for? We're going to talk about that because it is. May is American Stroke Month, and so that's why stroke is the number 4 cause of death, number 1 cause of disability. And so while that itself is not directly related to the heat, we're talking heat stroke. The symptoms are so similar. So Be Fast stands for balance, eyesight, face drooping, arm weakness, slurred speech, time to call 911. So I know I put that out fast. You can go to stroke.org and see all that information. But those are the things you need to be looking for when it comes to stroke symptom. A lot of those, like you said, mimic heat stroke as well. So just really knowing if something is off with your body, you have to be the one to say something about it. And that's what we want to encourage or to empower people with that knowledge.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining me this afternoon and sharing your expertise on this very important topic. I know probably we'll be discussing this a lot more, especially once we get into the actual summer months, and give people those constant reminders to make sure that they're on top of things to make sure they keep themselves healthy in the summer.
You'll have to have us back in the winter because it's very different then.
Yes, it is. Honestly,
also
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. We can touch on that,
We'll
especially.
be talking about frostbite.
Yeah,
maybe at that point.
yeah, and and like we talked about this before we hopped on the podcast. You guys already know I'm not a fan of the cold. So. We got a ways before we get there. Thank God, we're going into summer right now. I'm happy about that. But of course, I'm really happy to have you guys back to talk about how the same conversation can relate to the colder months as well.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week.